Ryan to root for Claressa. I really am. I ain't gonna lie. I got a little bothered when her cousin did an interview. Now, I allowed the interview because I'm messy. I'm a messy bitch like that. You feel me? I can't help who I am. But I did feel just a little bit sorry for Claressa when her cousin Shalita came on my platform and literally, I said, what are people saying that you dragging her down?
What if everything you defended was never loyalty at all? According to Tasha K, this was never about rumors. This was about receipts that took weeks to verify quietly off camera, off timelines, away from the noise. She says the truth didn't come all at once. It came in fragments. Overlapping dates that didn't line up. The same voice notes sent to different women. The same excuses recycled, just delivered to new inboxes. And while Claressa Shields stood publicly confident, posting strength, posting love, posting belief, privately, the foundation was already cracking. Tasha K claims people tried to warn her. More than once. But Claressa was in love mode, trust mode, defending loyalty that didn't actually exist. Because according to what was uncovered, Papoose wasn't juggling one secret situation. He was managing a system. 5 women, 5 roles. 1 for emotional support, 1 kept quiet, 1 from the past that never really ended, 1 recent, and 1 held as a future option. This wasn't chaos. It was structure. And Claressa, whether she knew it or not, was standing inside something that was never designed to protect her. The moment that shattered everything didn't happen online. It happened quietly. On Christmas. The day she believed was theirs was already booked. That's when the collapse began, not in tears, not on camera, but in realization. Because when love turns out to be multitasking, the real question isn't who lied first. It's who stays once the truth is no longer deniable.
But on this Christmas with him, this very special Christmas with him, yeah. Apparently, Claressa spent Christmas alone in the Louis Vuitton store, racking up about $30,000 in bills this Christmas. Okay, Papoose was with his family.
Tasha K didn't open this story with drama. She opened it with certainty. This isn't rumors, she said. These are receipts. And that distinction mattered. Because according to her, this wasn't something she reacted to overnight. This was something she sat with. Verified quietly. Cross-checked without noise. Names were confirmed. Timelines were compared. Patterns were tested. And when everything finally lined up, what came into focus wasn't just a messy relationship, it was something far more calculated. She claimed multiple people tried to warn Claressa Shields long before the public ever noticed anything was wrong. Not aggressively, not publicly, just quiet conversations, subtle nudges, questions that didn't quite add up. But Claressa, according to Tasha, was in love mode. And love mode has a way of turning red flags into background noise. She trusted the loyalty she was being shown. She trusted the reassurance. She trusted the version of the story that made her feel chosen. What she didn't realize, at least not yet, was that loyalty wasn't being broken in one place. It was being divided across several. The first bomb, 5, not 1. Tasha K's first major claim changed the entire scope of the situation. This wasn't about one extra woman. It wasn't about one mistake. It wasn't even about one secret relationship. According to what she uncovered, Papoose was simultaneously involved with 5 different women, each occupying a different lane in his life. One was positioned as emotional support, someone he leaned on, confided in, checked in with consistently. Another was a quiet relationship, low-key, off social media, kept intentionally out of sight. There was also a long-term past situation that never truly ended, history that lingered, comfort that remained accessible. Then came a recent hookup, short-term, impulsive, but still active. And finally, there was one more woman described as a future option. Someone kept close enough to remain available, but distant enough to stay undefined. Tasha K didn't frame this as chaos. She framed it as design. He wasn't in a relationship, she said. He was running a system. And in that system, every woman served a different purpose. Receipts without showing receipts. What made the story harder to dismiss wasn't flashy screenshots or leaked images. It was the way the details overlapped. Tasha described timelines that collided instead of flowing cleanly. Travel dates that didn't make sense when compared side by side. Voice notes that carried the same tone, the same phrasing, sent to different women. The excuses were familiar, almost scripted. Work obligations, family responsibilities, scheduling conflicts. Only the recipients changed. Again and again, the same patterns repeated. And the more those patterns emerged, the clearer one thing became. The loyalty Claressa was publicly defending looked very different behind the scenes. Publicly, Claressa Shields looked composed. She posted confidently. She showed strength. She appeared unbothered. But according to Tasha K, privately, it was not that simple. She claimed Claressa had already seen some messages. Not everything, but enough to raise questions. And instead of confronting the situation directly, Claressa reportedly searched for context, explanations, alternate meanings. She tried to convince herself that what she was seeing didn't apply to her, that she was different, that her place in his life was secure, which led the narrative to a question no one wanted to ask out loud. Was Claressa the main woman, or just the most visible one?
So I felt sorry for Claressa when she was in there blowing a bag, $30,000, and then she had to take the bag to Papoose and acted as if Papoose gave her the bag.
Give me nothing from Louis for real. I don't know why you did that, but you didn't have to.
It's Christmas.
You didn't have to give me.
This moment mattered, because to Tasha K, it wasn't about a bag. It was about behavior. The hesitation, the slip, the performance layered over reality. Small moments often reveal what big statements try to hide. According to Tasha K, the real turning point didn't happen during an argument. It didn't happen online. It didn't happen publicly at all. It happened on Christmas. She claimed Claressa spent that day alone. The explanation she was given was simple: family obligations. But the reality, according to the expose, was far more painful. Papoose wasn't unavailable. He wasn't isolated. He was with Remy Ma and his daughter. And that distinction changed everything. Tasha K put it bluntly: the day Claressa thought was our holiday was already booked. What made it worse wasn't just the lie, it was the framing. Claressa was told family comes first. Yet she was never truly included in the family circle. While this was unfolding privately, the public narrative told a different story. Claressa continued posting couple content, throwbacks, supportive captions. From the outside, it looked unified, stable, secure. But according to Tasha K, behind the scenes, the energy didn't match. He was emotionally distant. Future plans were vague. Decisions were made without her input. As the story framed it, she was creating girlfriend content. He was building an exit strategy. When the title says, Claressa collapses, Tasha K was clear, this wasn't physical. There were no public tears. No breakdown video. No dramatic moment caught on camera. This was quieter than that. It was the collapse of trust. The collapse of certainty. The collapse of the version of reality she had been defending. This wasn't a crying collapse, Tasha K said. It was a realization collapse. And those are harder to recover from. Tasha K made one thing very clear. She wasn't trying to turn Claressa into a villain. She wasn't attacking her strength. She wasn't questioning her worth. She said she was exposing a system. A pattern where powerful men juggle emotional access across multiple women while presenting a single, controlled image to the public. Claressa isn't weak, she said. She was misinformed. As the story spread, Papoose didn't erupt. There were no lengthy denials. No detailed breakdowns. Just short statements. Minimal engagement. And to Tasha K, that silence wasn't accidental. When receipts are real, she said, silence is strategy. If 5 women were involved, if Christmas was a lie, if the system was real, then the story no longer belongs to gossip. It becomes a decision. Because the real collapse isn't public. It's the moment Claressa decides whether to walk away or stay inside the chaos. By the time the story reached this point, one thing became impossible to ignore. Nothing was being denied. Nothing was being clarified. Nothing was being explained. And in situations like this, silence doesn't mean confusion. It means calculation. According to Tasha K, what unfolded next was not emotional chaos, it was strategic restraint. While the public debated timelines, receipts, and Christmas lies, the central figure at the heart of the storm did something very deliberate. He slowed everything down. No long statements. No interviews. No emotional appeals. Just enough presence to remind people he was watching, and just enough distance to avoid saying anything that could be challenged later. Tasha K interpreted this not as fear, but as experience. Because when someone has managed multiple narratives at once, they already know the most dangerous thing they can do is talk too much. The system becomes visible. This was no longer about whether multiple women existed. It was about how long the system had been running. According to what Tasha K described, each woman existed in a different emotional lane, and none of them were meant to collide. Overlapping dates weren't accidents, they were scheduled risks. Travel timing wasn't random, it was staggered intentionally. The structure only worked as long as every woman believed she had a unique role. Claressa's role, according to the narrative, wasn't secrecy. It was visibility. She was the loudest presence, the most publicly defended, the one whose strength and confidence made the entire situation look stable from the outside. And that mattered, because as long as she appeared solid, the system stayed protected. When love turns into defense, Tasha K suggested something darker beneath the surface. She claimed Claressa didn't just trust blindly, she actively defended the trust. When questions surfaced, she contextualized them. When inconsistencies appeared, she reframed them. When timelines clashed, she told herself there was a reasonable explanation she just hadn't seen yet. This wasn't weakness. This was emotional investment colliding with cognitive dissonance. Because admitting the truth would mean admitting something far more painful, that loyalty was never exclusive. And once that realization begins, everything else starts to unravel. The moment that shifted the power. Midway through the story, Tasha K returned to a moment that, on the surface, looked insignificant. A comment, a pause, a slip. But small moments don't need to be loud to be revealing. They just need to be honest.
LV store on Christmas because she couldn't attend the family gatherings, even though she says she's family. And she says that Papoose is divorcing Remy, even though the last time I saw, I don't know if things are being done, is that Remy withdrew from that divorce.
This wasn't gossip. This was pressure. Because if divorce wasn't moving forward, then nothing was actually being cleared. No clean exits. No clean starts. Just people suspended in emotional limbo. Why the divorce mattered. According to Tasha K, the divorce narrative wasn't about legality, it was about leverage. As long as things remained unresolved, power stayed exactly where it was. No finality meant no accountability. No paperwork meant no public closure. And for someone running multiple emotional lanes, unresolved status was an advantage. Because it kept everyone guessing. It kept options open. It kept stories flexible. It kept reactions delayed. And in that uncertainty, Claressa was left holding the emotional weight of a situation she didn't fully control. Public confidence, private pressure. Outwardly, Claressa still appeared composed. No breakdown posts. No accusations. No emotional rants. But Tasha K claimed the internal pressure was intensifying. She described a woman torn between what she felt and what she had already defended publicly. Because once you defend a narrative loudly, walking it back becomes humiliating. And humiliation, more than heartbreak, is what keeps people silent longer than they should be. The cost of being the strong one. Tasha K highlighted a pattern she said appears often in situations like this. The strongest woman in the room is often expected to absorb the most damage quietly. No one rushes to protect her. No one assumes she's confused. No one checks on her certainty. They assume she's fine. But strength doesn't stop realization from hurting. It just delays when you allow it to show. Silence as a weapon. As the allegations spread, the lack of response became louder than any denial could have been. No detailed rebuttal. No timeline corrections. No evidence presented to counter the claims. According to Tasha K, this wasn't accidental. When receipts are real, she said, silence becomes strategy. Because every word spoken can be examined. Every sentence can be replayed. Silence leaves nothing to dissect. The story turns inward. Not to the women. Not to the rumors. But to the choice. Claressa Shields, according to this narrative, stood at a psychological crossroads. One path required her to walk away, publicly, decisively, permanently. The other required her to stay quietly, cautiously, within a structure she now understood. Neither path was easy. Both came with consequences. And neither could be postponed forever. Because once the system is seen, it can never be unseen. This story is no longer about exposure. It's about timing. About when silence ends. About when decisions are made. About when strength stops being performative and becomes self-protective. And the most dangerous moment hasn't happened yet. Because the real collapse isn't loud. It's the second she decides whether to protect the image or protect herself. By now, the story is no longer moving forward. It's tightening. Because once a system is exposed, it doesn't collapse immediately. It resists. It compresses. It applies pressure where it knows silence has worked before. According to the narrative Tasha K laid out, this is the phase where everything slows down on the surface and accelerates underneath. No new statements. No dramatic confrontations. No public acknowledgement. Just waiting. And waiting in situations like this is never neutral. The moment after realization. There is a moment that follows realization, a quiet one, where the mind stops searching for explanations. This is the moment when you're no longer asking, is this true? You're asking, how long has this been true? According to Tasha K, this is where Claressa Shields found herself. Not confused anymore. Not searching for context. Not trying to decode messages. Just sitting with the weight of what had already been uncovered. Because once patterns repeat too cleanly, denial stops being protective and starts being exhausting. The cost of seeing clearly. Seeing clearly doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels humiliating. Because clarity forces you to replay every moment you defended someone who didn't deserve it. Every time you dismissed a warning. Every instance where you became the shield for a narrative that was quietly harming you. Tasha K suggested that Claressa's collapse wasn't dramatic because it didn't need to be. It was internal. A recalculation. A sudden awareness that strength had been weaponized against her, not by force, but by assumption. She was strong, so she'd endure. She was confident, so she wouldn't question. She was public, so she'd protect the image. Until the image stopped protecting her. The system's final move. Wait it out. By part 3, the silence had a different meaning. It wasn't just avoidance. It was patience. Because according to Tasha K, systems like this don't rush endings. They wait for fatigue to set in. They rely on the assumption that public attention will drift. That outrage will soften. That the person carrying the emotional burden will eventually choose the path of least resistance. Silence isn't absence. It's pressure without fingerprints. And the longer nothing is said, the more the responsibility shifts, not to the person who created the damage, but to the person expected to respond to it gracefully. Why public strength becomes a trap. There's a cruel paradox in being visibly strong. People stop checking on you. They stop asking whether you're okay. They stop considering that you might be unsure. They assume you've already processed everything. And when you don't immediately react, they interpret it as confirmation. Confirmation that nothing serious happened. Confirmation that the allegations were exaggerated. Confirmation that silence equals consent. Tasha K warned against this assumption. She argued that silence doesn't always mean acceptance. Sometimes it means calculation. Sometimes it means survival. The internal question no one can answer for her. At this stage, the story stopped being about 5 women. It stopped being about Christmas. It stopped being about timelines. It became about a single, brutal question. If I walk away now, who do I become? Walking away doesn't just end a relationship. It rewrites your public identity. It forces you to admit that something you stood behind was never what you thought it was. Staying, on the other hand, demands a different sacrifice. It requires compartmentalization. It requires silence. It requires the ability to live with knowledge you can't unsee. Neither option offers peace. They just offer different kinds of loss. Tasha K's final position. Tasha K made it clear she wasn't pushing Claressa toward a specific choice. She wasn't calling for confrontation. She wasn't demanding public statements. She wasn't framing this as a spectacle. She framed it as a reckoning. This isn't about exposing a woman, she said. It's about exposing a pattern. A pattern where power is maintained through ambiguity. Where accountability is delayed through silence. Where women are expected to absorb emotional fallout quietly, especially when they are capable, accomplished, and outwardly resilient. According to Tasha K, Claressa's strength was never the issue. The issue was that her strength made the system comfortable. When silence stops protecting anyone, there comes a point where silence stops being strategic. Where it stops protecting reputations. Where it stops preserving options. And instead, it starts eroding trust permanently. Tasha K suggested that this moment was approaching. Because once the public understands a system, they stop waiting for confirmation. They start watching behavior. And behavior, unlike statements, can't be edited. Who shows up? Who avoids clarity? Who keeps options open instead of closing chapters? Those details tell a story on their own. The real collapse. By the end of part 3, the word collapse has taken on its full meaning. It was never about tears. Never about headlines. Never about public embarrassment. It was about the collapse of illusion. The illusion that loyalty was mutual. The illusion that visibility meant priority. The illusion that silence meant safety. Tasha K framed this as the most dangerous collapse of all because it forces action. Once you see the structure, you can't stand inside it comfortably anymore. Where this story really ends. This story doesn't end with exposure. It ends with a decision. A decision Claressa Shields will make privately long before the public ever sees it. Whether she chooses distance or confrontation. Whether she chooses silence or clarity. Whether she chooses to preserve the image or preserve herself. And that's the part no one can script. Because the real collapse isn't what the internet witnesses. It's the moment she decides whether to walk away or remain inside the chaos, fully aware of what it is. This is where the story stops being entertainment and turns into a decision with consequences. Because once the noise fades, once the clips stop circulating, once the comments slow down, one truth remains sitting in the middle of all of it. Nothing that was exposed can be unseen. According to what has been laid out, this was never about one lie. It was about a structure that thrived on silence, overlap, and emotional convenience. And when a structure like that cracks, it doesn't collapse loudly. It waits. Claressa Shields now stands in a moment most people never see coming until it's already there. Not a public breakdown. Not a viral rant. But a private reckoning. The kind that forces you to replay every defense, every excuse you made for someone else, every time you chose trust over instinct. That's the real damage. Not heartbreak, realization. And realization doesn't scream. It suffocates. If 5 women were real, if Christmas was never hers, if loyalty was just multitasking with better timing, then the question isn't what happened. The question is what happens next. Because silence from one side is not peace. It's positioning. And silence from the other side is not weakness. It's a calculation between dignity and exposure. Walking away costs pride. Staying costs self-respect. Either choice leaves a scar. This is not a story about villains and victims. It's about power, access, and who pays the emotional price when the truth surfaces too late. And the most dangerous part isn't what was said. It's what hasn't been denied. So now it's on you. Do you think this was a system or a coincidence? Was Claressa the main woman, or just the loudest one? And when the receipts are real, how long can silence actually survive? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this before it disappears into the timeline. And remember, the real collapse never happens in public. It happens the moment someone decides whether to protect the image or finally protect themselves.